On a winding road on the edge of a small town in rural New Hampshire, a black Cadillac Escalade stood out among the pale yellow leaves in the summer sun. Donald Trump was inside. This time there was no rally, no meeting, no TV show. This trip seemed like a personal necessity. Neither his advisors knew why he was on it, nor could he explain it. But something had drawn him there. A tiny stone-walled building appeared on the side of the road. A battered sign on it read, "Whitmore and Sons, Antiques since 1897. The driver asked, "Would you like me to stop, Mr. Trump?" Trump looked through the window. There was no light, old posters in the windows, dust on the shelves. But there was something, a feeling, a calling. "Yes, stop here," he said simply. When he opened the door, a gust of wind blew through the front of the antique shop, a momentary breeze like a whisper from the past with the wind. The bell on the door rang, jing-nain. When he entered, the dimness was felt immediately. The shop was much larger and deeper than it appeared from the outside. It was as if time was also curling up inside as he entered. Antique mirrors along the walls, stacked books, lamps, typewriters. Every item was there with its own story, and those stories were silently waiting to be listened to. Trump walked slowly. He touched the carvings of a chair with his fingertips. It had the date 1940 written on it. A voice came. An old man appeared from behind. He was walking leaning on his cane. "Welcome, Donald Trump, right?" Trump was not surprised. "Yes, I guess people you don't know don't come to your shop often." The old man smiled. "Everyone who comes here is already known. It doesn't matter who they are, it matters what they are looking for." Trump continued to browse. Then he touched a box with his fingers, an old dark walnut box with Latin inscriptions. It was closed, but there was a small notch on the lid. Only 3 letters were engraved on it, A.V.E. Trump paused. His finger caught the notch. Instinctively, he felt as if he had touched this box before. The old man approached. "No one has ever opened it before. We didn't sell it. Everyone who came only asked, then gave up." Trump turned and looked. "Do you know what it is?" "Knowing is one thing, feeling is another," the man said. "But only those who deserve to open what's inside can open it." Trump bowed his head. "How much will you sell it for?" The man looked into Trump's eyes. "I don't want money, but I do want something." "What?" "A real intention. Only someone who has faced their past can see what's inside." Trump was silent for a moment. Then he put his hands in his pockets. "My past is out in the open. There is nothing left to hide." The man laughed softly. "That's what you think." Trump lifted the box with both hands. It had weight, but not just physical, like a burden of memory lying inside. He turned away, and before leaving, he turned to the old man and said, "I'll get back to this, but first, I need to figure out why it's here." The man nodded. "Boxes are carried, but messages find you." When he left the door, the wind blew again. The bell rang again, but this time its sound was long, like a humming echo. Clink-n. Trump got in the car. He still had the box in his hand, but he didn't know what it was. Yet. And from that moment on, Donald Trump began to live not with an ordinary antique box, with a secret that had reached the present day from the past. Dear viewers, this is not just the story of an old box. This is a man's journey to come to terms with his past. Subscribe, because this story goes much deeper than you might expect. From the moment he took the box into the car, Donald Trump couldn't get comfortable. The small box, which appeared to be made of black walnut wood, seemed to speak, even though it was closed. Or maybe it was the first time Trump had heard a voice coming from inside him so clearly. He said nothing to anyone when he returned to his Palm Beach mansion. He placed the box on the large leather-covered desk in his study. He closed the curtains. He dimmed the lights. He put the phone on silent and sat down alone in front of him. He fingered the engraved letters on the box. A.V.E. "What does this stand for?" he mumbled. Not a family name, not a company name, but it sounded like something he had heard before. He took a deep breath. He hooked his thumb into the notch in the lid and turned it over with a light press. The first thing that came out of the box was an old yellowed piece of paper, a single sentence written in worn-out ink. "If you remain silent, the echo will give you away." Trump paused. What did the sentence mean? Was it a threat, a warning, or just a quote from the past? A second small stone came out of the box. Not a diamond, not gold, but it was cold and heavy. Another note engraved letter by letter on it. Albany, 1982, back room. Red frame. At that moment, a repressed memory came to life in Trump's mind. Albany, 1982, a building where he had just entered the real estate market and attended a small meeting, a period he had forgotten for years, but the phrase back room and the red frame. This was no longer just nostalgia emerging from a box. This was something buried in his subconscious coming to the surface. Trump leaned back in his chair, and for the first time, he asked a question he hadn't asked in a long time. What did I forget there that day? He answered his phone. He simply told his secretary, "I want all the records in Albany from 1982, hotels, events, special invitations, especially art galleries." When his secretary asked in surprise, "Why, sir?" Trump replied shortly, "Because sometimes the past sends you an address, and if you don't open that door, it echoes in your future." The next day, he left for Albany by private jet. He was accompanied only by a bodyguard. No information had been given to the press. This time, he was on the road not as a president, but as a seeker in his inner world. The city was the same, or so it seemed. But that event hall of 1982 was now an abandoned art gallery. When he opened its door, there seemed to be nothing inside but dust. But there were old nails on the walls, yellowed marks here and there, and a frame still standing in the left corner. Red, a rusty frame, empty. Trump approached. He looked behind the frame. There was a small gap. He reached inside with his fingers, and there, he found a small leather-bound notebook. The notebook's cover had those letters again, A.V.E. When he opened it, a paragraph starting with Trump's name. "Donald, when you read these lines, time will have long since changed you. But what you forgot has not left you. You made a decision in the past, and that decision now wants to be remembered." Trump's hand trembled. There was something else engraved under the sentences. "If you speak, they won't hear you, but if you keep quiet, they'll figure you out." Just then, someone approached from behind him. An old woman entered the door, a cane in his hand, a familiar expression in his eyes. "You opened that box, didn't you?" he said. Trump turned to the woman. "Who are you?" The woman approached. "I am not A.V.E., but I am the last person who knew him." Dear viewers, if you've gotten this far in the story, you know by now that this is no ordinary antiques shopping. Leave a comment. What do you think A.V.E. stands for? And please subscribe, because as this mystery unravels, some answers may be closer than you think. The woman sat down in a chair. "When that meeting was held in 1982, you found something, or you were given something, but you forgot. You were supposed to forget. But now that forgotten thing is calling you back because the time has come." Trump asked in surprise, "What is what? Who is A.V.E.?" The woman closed her eyes. Not just one person, a principle, a manifesto, but 3 people who sat at the same table with you years ago, tried to destroy it. You were undecided, but now your decision will determine the fate of others. Trump opened the notebook again. The pages were full. Handwriting, codes, maps, letters, and each one pointed to a question. But there was one sentence. That sentence closed the notebook. Some things are not forgotten in the past, they are only kept waiting. Trump understood in that moment. This box held a secret. But a secret was not just information, it was a burden, and he himself did not know if he was ready to carry that burden. After his conversation with the old woman in that abandoned gallery in Albany, Donald Trump understood that the antique box was not just a souvenir, but a legacy. But this legacy was not just a valuable object, but an idea carried inside, an unfinished promise, an unfulfilled promise. The woman continued speaking without taking her eyes off Trump. "You were with 3 people that day. One got lost, one forgot, but one waited until today, because that box was a time capsule. It was not waiting for you, it was waiting for the right time." Trump opened the notebook in his hand again. Each line was like an association, each word was like a broken memory. "What did I promise there?" he asked. The woman took a deep breath. "You said you would stand for a principle, but then the world pulled you away, and you silenced it. But that principle did not silence." Trump stood up. He paced back and forth in the middle of the room. A complex of emotions coursed through his mind: astonishment, regret, curiosity, fear. But most of all, the weight. The weight of that box was not just physical, it was a kind of spiritual reckoning. He approached the woman. "So what do I do now?" The woman tapped the table with her cane. "You didn't open the last compartment in the box." Trump picked up the box again. He examined it. There was indeed a hidden mechanism at the bottom. It opened with a tiny crack. Inside, a small black-covered card. It read only this in white typewritten letters: A.V.E. equals a voice endures. Trump's fingers tightened on the card. A voice. If a voice lives, no one can silence it. The woman adjusted her glasses. "There is a voice inside you that you have silenced. This is your real voice. A voice different from political speeches, stage recitations, journalists' microphones. You had to remember it." Trump fell into a deep silence at that moment. Sentences that had not been said for years, feelings that he had buried in his heart, things he had to leave behind. All of them suddenly caught in his throat. And then he whispered, "I only wanted to win. But now, I understand what I lost." The woman smiled slightly. "Then you are in the right time. Don't carry that box with you anymore. Give it back. Because the box did its job. It reawakened the voice inside you." Trump bowed his head. He held the box out to the woman. But he took one last piece from it, a small stone. "I will keep this," he said, "to remember." The woman nodded. The real memory is not in the stone, it is in the one who carries it. When Trump returned to New York, he told his advisors that he wanted to give a closed-door speech. Only a few local reporters were invited. There was no prepared text. He had his hands in his pockets when he took the microphone. The crowd was silent. And for the first time, Trump spoke so slowly, so personally, so truly. Sometimes the past fits in a box, but you don't dare open that box because you don't know what you're going to face. But I did, and I heard the voice of the past inside. A silence, he continued. "I've spoken in many places in this country, but perhaps the most important speech I've ever given, to myself." If you've read this story to the end, you'll have noticed something. This is not the story of a president, but of a man who met his inner voice. Write in the comments, do you have a box that you're afraid to open? And subscribe. Because we are not just telling stories here, sometimes we remember the voices that are silent together. Trump ended his speech that day with these words: "Some people leave buildings behind, some sentences, but the most lasting legacy is a voice that echoes in someone else's heart." Then he left the podium. Nobody applauded, but everybody fell silent, and that silence was the loudest noise that history recorded that day.